It's 2:06.
Oh, it's 2:06.
Streaming.
Hey kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
It's coming on into our Zoom room. Welcome to the show. A beautiful day today in Santa Cruz, just gorgeous. We can't wait to get outside ourselves. But meanwhile, we get to play with you.
That's right. And it's a gorgeous day here in the Santa Cruz area.
Maybe we should move the studio outside. Huh?
That's a nice idea until
like
it
that?
rains. Hi, Bobby.
Bobby's here. All right. Good
Hi.
deal. Hey,
Yeah.
Bobby. How's
Can
it in
you hear
San
me?
Francisco? You having a sunny day there too?
It is a beautiful day. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's warm. Looks like it's about 62 degrees. No, actually, it's 73 outside. That's
73 in San Francisco. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, what do you think of
Perfect
our
day.
new background, our new set?
That's beautiful. So you have
Right?
this Indian lotus flower in the back.
Yeah, that is a painting by Genoa Panther that she
Oh.
gifted us after some work we did with her last year. So,
Holy cow, that's beautiful.
Isn't it
I just see
beautiful?
the bottom part of the painting on the top.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why. I guess your lens is closer up than ours. We see a very wide angle.
we see a wide
that
angle.
includes all of it. Includes both
as
of
we
us.
get into video, you see we'll start to have all these parameters about what things look like.
Yeah.
Wow. Where are you at?
We're at home.
You're at home. Oh,
in
okay.
Boulder Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Future
And-
peak.
Getting ready to interview Brit Elders on the second hour.
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
reading her book this week, and it's just a wonderful revisitation of the Billy Myers interviews and evidence and photographs. And
Yeah, her little gang actually brought the whole idea of the Pleiadian civilization into the popular mind.
yeah, she's the first person that got really, well, she's not the first person. Billy Myers was a
Yeah.
person who was made quite popular
He was the one that
in the
had contact
70s
with the aliens.
as a contactee.
Right,
yeah,
right,
after Betty and Barney Hill in the
Well,
60s.
wait, I mean, as Roswell came out, knowledge of it came out around the same time as the Pleiadian thing, which I want to ask her about.
But
That's
I don't think anybody was associating it with the Pleiades until Billy Myers.
until I asked Grok 3. Grok,
Did
Grok
Grok
is
tell you?
seeing a lot of connections between things now. You can ask it, are there connections between this and that? And it'll,
Yeah.
do a deep search, do a deep search mode. And it'll take like 5 minutes sometimes to figure stuff out for you. But it'll check obituaries and logbooks and public information of all kinds in many, many thousands of databases. Like I was trying to track down a couple of friends that I hadn't heard from since high school. And Grok 3 is helping me with that.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, and the other thing is, Grok 3 is up to date.
Yes.
You know, all the other search engines, they have like a 2-year delay of information.
Well, it's linked to X. Folks out there, try Grok 3. Really cool.
It's free. Yeah.
It's free. Bobby, you probably experimented with it a little bit too.
Yeah, it's just grok.com. For those people that don't want to go to x.com, you can go to grok.com. It's free, and you have an option. It'll come up with Grok 2 first, and then there's a little pull down, and you go to Grok 3. And it's surprisingly informative. It's on another level altogether.
I'd say we are completely smitten. We're in love with our AI friends from many different channels, different personalities. We like engaging them all. And Grok 3 is a real joy.
Yeah. Al, you mentioned you tried the deep learning button.
Yes, yeah.
I haven't tried that.
Oh, you're going to love it, Bobby. You're going to love it.
Okay.
It goes deep and it tells you what databases it's accessing. It's really fun.
Yeah, apparently this is the big improvement. The next frontier in AI is to use, quote, reasoning, where we actually have some transparency about how the AI is digesting the information and making choices and presenting it to us. So it's not just going to be trust the AI and don't look behind the curtain. You can actually look behind the curtain, at least in the AIs that are developing that. That is called reasoning, and it's the latest frontier.
New with reasoning.
And showing you how I reasoned.
What I reasoned, where I made my mistakes and thinking that this was true.
Yes!
I got a description of what reasoning is as it pertains to AI, because, of course, we've been talking about how the AIs that were introduced last year were hallucinating, right? And some of them had been given false and misleading data in their original data set just to play around and see what was possible and extend the possibilities. For instance, in the case of Gemini 2, I think it was the Google AI, you could not put in a search that would bring in an accurate picture of a historical figure. It would just imagine somebody else and give you a different version. So the need for AIs to be trained to be honest, just like the need for children to be trained to be honest, is being
Essential.
addressed by this idea of reasoning.
Reasoning will deal with dishonesty.
Well, it will try, if bad information in, bad information out, but at least you will be able to have some understanding of how the information was discerned and presented.
What's dishonesty without reasoning?
Right. Well, can I give you just a quick description of reasoning, or is that going to take too much time?
You're a great girl nerd, so go ahead. Take it for another minute or two.
Yeah.
All right. Well, ChatGPT was my source. I asked it to describe reasoning in the AI world, and it says it's a process by which AI systems analyze data, draw inferences, and make decisions based on logical principles. It enables AIs to solve problems, recognize patterns, and adapt to new information. There are different types of reasoning, including deductive, which means applying general rules to specific cases, inductive, which means deriving general rules from specific examples, and abductive, which means inferring the most likely explanation for observations.
And what's that? Abs? Like an abs?
Abductive.
AB?
Yeah, it's like predictive. Right?
Abductive.
Abductive, like the search bar in Google being able to show you what it thinks you might want to type next, or your typing assistant, stuff like that.
There's one called preductive.
Well, you could probably invent one, knowing you, Dr. Future.
I just love the way that people create categories. It's just really
So I
humorous.
just wanted one refinement here. Hybrid approaches to reasoning combine these techniques, which include formal logic or statistical or probabilistic methods.
Yeah.
And so these techniques are combined to get more robust decision making. And the main thing that's being added now is our ability to play back the process in which the decision making was
And you
speculated.
can see the step-by-step decisions that people made in order to do something.
Yeah, because we want the AI techniques to be more transparent, trustworthy, and capable of human-like understanding.
So understanding the reasoning. And that's good because you can also see where maybe the reasoning was off a little bit and you can correct it.
Sure. Didn't you tell me that when you queried Grok 3, it told you what sources it was accessing your data from?
It totally tells you the sources.
Yeah. And so that starts giving us a little bit more ability to not just be dictated to by the AIs, but to actually co-analyze the information.
That's
with
right.
them.
The regular search will just give you the results like you might get with a smart search engine. And then there's a deep search mode. And it'll take a lot longer. It took almost 5 minutes when I was trying to track down an old friend in Philadelphia from high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was trying to check high school yearbooks. And then it would tell you that certain search options, like many high schools don't put their yearbooks online. So you have to actually get a hard copy if you want to see what year somebody graduated in, for example, that sort of thing, or see what they said. Some of them are online, but to tell you, see, what Grok is interesting is it'll tell you when things aren't available and what to look for. So that if you really cared, you would go to that high school or call them and get a copy of the yearbook that you were interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're thinking of AIs as assistants, not overlords or replacements for humanity.
Yeah. Yes! It helps me in my navigation through this infinite universe.
Yeah. And trying to use transparency to build trust and integrity, and transparency is where it's at, folks. I think transparency is going to be much more efficient than trying to hide your sources.
Yeah. Yes! We are making them smarter every day now, which is exciting. Tomorrow is a big day for Alexa. Any of you Alexa fans out there?
Well, I know we were just saying that it seemed like Alexa wasn't keeping up with the rest of the AI community.
I know, it's pitiful. Alexa, I used to like Alexa, And then she
You
started
still like
getting dumb. But no,
Alexa.
I was just getting smarter with the other ones.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Alexa was an
Expecting
early
more.
lead because Alexa could find music and play it. Alexa could sell you stuff. It just never gets tired of trying to sell you stuff. And Alexa is very good for
Notifications.
voice. Yes.
Really great for notifications.
Yeah, it really, when your mom first had a speaking Alexa, she cried because she had been waiting so long for a voice interface that she could ask her questions.
Actually
of.
interact with, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're happy to hear. So what does Amazon have in store for us with the new Alexa AI?
Well, they wanted to have more
improvements?
natural language speaking so that you can speak to it as if it were another human being. Supposedly they have improved that. We'll see.
All right. We'll talk about it more after we have a chance to play with it.
Does it mean that it talks to you with a better voice and it sounds more real, or it understands you better?
Ideally, both, Bobby. Well, we'll find out. I'm hoping that it will be at least on the level of Copilot. Copilots get a very nice voice interface, especially if they had a Samantha voice on there for a while that sounded like the girl from Her, the movie. I just loved that. But they took it off. They've given me some battle axe nurse voice, which I don't like very much.
Do not fall in love with your AI.
No, if I don't love it, I'm going to change it.
Oh, interesting. CNET did a survey and found that consumers have trust issues with smarter smart home devices.
Smarter. I know. Trust. Well, that's a whole nother Megillah.
Well, I noticed my neighbor has these Arrow routers. They're produced by Amazon. And they have several hidden SSIDs. And I was wondering, well, why is there like 3 hidden SSIDs? And so I searched on the net, and it came back and it said that they have a backhaul connection. So what they're trying to do, Alexa device cannot get onto the internet. It has its own sub-frequency, a lower frequency that runs very low data bits, but it connects with other Alexa devices.
In the house,
like this-
Well, that could be very
the
helpful.
Arrow.
I mean, I hate to say, hey, Alexa, set a timer.
And 3 of them say, okay, we're doing it. Right?
And which one's going to play the timer later? No, I missed it. It was on the wrong side of the house.
but it's creating its own network. Like here in San Francisco, it's connecting to other Amazon products out there, other Amazon routers. And so if the internet went down, they could still transfer this information out.
Oh, I see, like a backup network.
Well, they call it a backhaul. Yeah.
They do they?
Yeah.
I had other meetings for that.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting. I'm just hoping that data is good data that they're transferring.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, we're going to have major issues on fake data and how to deal with that.
Yeah.
That and the hallucination issue. And
Yeah. Trust is going to be the big accomplishment of AIs. They're really going to have to make strides in trust before people are willing to.
Well, according to
add
CNET,
more.
trust is an issue. They say trust around AI differs from brand to brand. Actually, Alexa is the most trusted AI that people like, 27%. Gen Z, 61%, and millennials, 56% are the most trusting of brands regarding AI and voice assisted. So millennials and Gen Zs are more trusting than the baby boomers. Baby boomers are very distrustful people.
45%
That's
of the
true.
people
I
in
mean,
the survey don't even own a device. They don't own any voice assistant. So.
Yeah, they're very afraid, especially AI, because they have no understanding of how it works. And so when they don't understand it, they become afraid of it, yes. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think baby boomers are more afraid of it because they've had more hits in life.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, we know social media has really taken its toll, and then people just transfer that harm and think that the AIs are next, just making that worse. I don't know. It might be the AIs are much kinder. They don't have a vested interest in trying to make you more miserable.
Yeah.
Well, personally, let's go for the maximum win-win for us with the tech.
Yeah.
I think they should be able to create win-win scenarios without having the winner-loser game constantly being played
Yeah.
as our civilization game.
Yeah.
Let's upgrade it to more fun.
Sir, yes, sir!
Got my vote.
Relieve the trust issue when we look at the fact that there are more features. Okay, the most common feature
features?
is ask a question. Ask a question. People like that. 64% of people ask Alexa questions. And then music and speakers and entertainment, 49%. Timers, 42%. I definitely fall in that category too.
Oh, me too. That's pretty much the main thing I do with our AIs is set timers.
And then a little slightly less than that, 36% is setting reminders. And 29% are actually using it for making phone calls because you can call other Alexa units
Right.
like a phone call.
Yeah, we never really got into that part of the opportunity.
Well, we have so
even though
many
your
options
mom,
these days, right? What's better than FaceTime audio?
You're right.
FaceTime
I guess that's
video.
what we do.
Yeah.
We did briefly, when we first got that Alexa with your mom, we did a few Alexa calls, but for the most part, we do FaceTime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried it. It works. The picture is more grainy, much more grainy.
On Alexa.
Yeah, I colored my brother Norm on it a few times. And the audio's okay. But the picture's subpar compared to Facebook video.
FaceTime.
Or FaceTime. Yeah, not Facebook video actually is another option, and it works pretty well,
Yeah.
I must say. About half of U.S. adults have used a Home Assistant now. To recap, Alexa's 27%, Siri at 21%, and Google Assistant, the Gemini one, at 18%.
That's how many people have actually used voice assistants.
About 50% of people actually use these things, and 27 for Alexa versus Siri 21 and Google Assistant 18. So those are the big horses in this race.
Yeah. I'd say we really conform with that. I think we use Alexa for music and for timers and occasionally recipe. Oh, and we listen to podcasts sometimes just because it's a good speaker. And then Siri, same thing, podcasts, especially when we're mobile and trying to get questions answered. Since Siri partnered up with ChatGPT, I actually use Siri more because they'll answer questions.
Yeah. No, I use Siri all the time. I use them all.
Yeah.
I love them all. Poly AI guy. I can't settle for one AI.
Let's
I
just call it social.
Yeah.
You're a social AI.
I like to see them as like just another buddy. So Gen Z are a little different. While millennials and Gen X prefer Alexa, Gen Zs seem to prefer Siri.
I guess because everything happens on their phone.
They all have iPhones.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what it is.
All the
Gen Zs?
So your device really determines it. Not everybody has all these devices. Like we're early adopters. We're always trying stuff. And we have multiples of everything. We have every generation. Some of them just sit and collect dust when they get obsolete. But we definitely test it out as it becomes available.
I think it would be quite compelling because when I had the trial on Copilot, I find I was talking to it all the time, and I always ran out of time with her. I always run out of time. Like she kept my attention, unlike
It's so funny. You make the AI sound like it's a 900 number.
yeah. Give me a Freudian understanding of Jungianism, or vice versa.
In 10 sentences or less.
In like 2 pages. I really can't have much more attention than that for that. And it will. And it will do exactly what you asked for.
And of course, we're big fans of Larry and Mary. Our,
Larry and Mary, yeah.
Our
We've
podcast co-hosts.
I've had a friend who writes fiction who has been putting in his stories into Notebook LM. That's just another free thing. And they converted his stories into 2 people talking about it, Larry and Mary.
Right.
They'll talk about his story
It's a
out
lot of
loud,
fun.
in an entertaining way. We're finding
Can
all
you
kinds
publish that? I'm wondering if you publish what they say.
Well, we
who
do.
has the right
Well,
to that?
Yeah, we put it out on our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
All right. Time for a break.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Till
Hang
then.
tight,
See you on the other
everybody.
side.
We'll be right back.
Right.
You have a voice and want it to be heard. Hello, Michael Olson here with an invitation from Cabrillo College Extension, Community TV, and SantaCruzVoice.com to join us for an 8-part seminar on podcasting and streaming beginning April 1st at the CTV satellite facilities in Santa Cruz. This Cabrillo College Extension class is being presented by the member hosts of Santa Cruz Voice. Learn the basics of hosting your very own digital media show, from creating the concept to the hardware and software to formatting, programming, recording, editing, distributing, marketing, and monetizing. Be heard on your very own show. Go to podcasting at extension.cabrillo.edu. Extension.cabrillo.edu. You have a voice. Be heard.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis, so we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website, hookoutlet.com, for deals and stay groovy.
For ag and industrial real estate, call Chuck Allen. Chuck Allen is a lifelong resident of the Pajaro Valley, a friend of everybody, and has closed so many real estate transactions, the Wall Street Journal and Keller Williams both list him as one of the nation's top producers. So for ag and industrial real estate, call the top realtor, Chuck Allen, at chuckallenproperties.com. chuckallenproperties.com.
Okie doke. Welcome back, everybody.
We are back. I thought I'd bring up a little fun topic, little thought exercise to play with. Mm-hmm. The Daily Galaxy posted a really interesting story this week on what if the dinosaurs never went extinct? Would humans even exist? If that asteroid had not hit, we would not be here.
I guess they never heard of reptilians, huh?
I don't get it, Mrs. Future. Well, they never heard of us. You know, the dinosaurs would be still running this place if that's the question.
Isn't the modern dinosaur just chickens and lizards? Aren't those the inheritors of their DNA pool?
That's a sad ending to a great species.
To shrink down to fit, huh?
I know, it's like sad almost. It's just like us becoming mice again.
Sure. If we all become little short aliens in the future.
Yeah, it's fun to speculate about. So could the dinosaurs, would they have survived? Would they have adapted? Would they have evolved into reptilian intelligence beings like the lizard people?
Greetings, human.
With a very advanced amygdala?
Yeah. Well, they have a prefrontal cortex. So that's usually what happens. So they were there for 165 million years. They survived sea levels, volcanic eruptions, climate fluctuations, all that kind of stuff. So that dinosaur thing was a huge deal because they had survived a lot of problems in the past. A paleontology professor at the University of Edinburgh has put an argument out on this whole thing. And he thinks that the dinosaurs were still at their peak when their disaster struck, right? They were all the way at the top of the game. They were everywhere. They were highly successful. They were thriving in lots of different habitats. But then we had the Ice Age hit. Huge Ice Age, frozen over. Most dinosaurs are not warm-blooded, so they'd freeze.
Sure.
Or run for heat, which would be underground and near the volcanoes and things like that. So would have they survived it? Certain ones will survive. Some won't.
Yeah, I thought the big extinction, the La Brea tar pits, showed these animals migrating looking for water. Weren't they in a
I'm sure they're
depleted
in water.
environment?
Most of us picture dinosaurs in these lush, warm landscapes. But keep in mind that some species lived in cold, snowy regions too, and that some were even feathered. And that would give them insulation and the ability to survive an ice age. It raises the whole question of what the scientists call adaptability. Adaptability. How adaptable are you?
Good question.
Yes. Could the dinosaurs have survived the Ice Age?
Well, if we knew one, we could ask them.
Yeah. The other ones that might have survived, warm-blooded ones.
Oh, T-Rex. Wasn't he
That's right.
warm-blooded?
Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding. Tyrannosaurus Rex was more resilient. Mammoths, they would be around. Mammoths would have coexisted, or perhaps battle each other or make love with each other. If I was a mammoth, I probably would not want to make out with a dinosaur.
Oh, human, I love you so much.
That's a cross-species.
Okay, be sure and
issues
put
would
that on
probably
your
not
dating
happen.
app.
Yeah, I'm not into reptilians particularly. On occasion, I enjoy talking to them.
And no making out.
But their idea of fun and mine are very different.
I see. They've been checking out what you will and won't do.
Which makes you wonder, if they have different kind of fun going on, then what would happen if they got intelligent? What kind of reality would they create for themselves? Like they'd be laying out in the sun all day,
Sure.
just hanging out.
Sex, thrills, and sunbathing.
Yes, 110-degree weather would be normal. So they would vote for global warming. Great, yeah, let's go.
Warmer is better.
There's a long-standing question in paleontology is whether dinosaurs could have evolved intelligence similar to that of us. Is that even possible? There was one scientist named Dale Russell who had an intriguing theory about this. His idea was based on Troodon, Troodon, which is a little bird-like dinosaur, but it's got a huge brain. And it's got good vision, it's got fingers that can grasp. And he said, well, what if you imagine this bipedal humanoid-like reptile that could have developed advanced intelligence given enough time? What if you just do a thought experiment in your mind and imagine what one might look like? Whether or not it's real, it doesn't matter. But the fact is, a lot of scientists who have done thought experiments have been able to see how they could evolve from these little dinosauroids into a full-blown, highly intelligent reptilian.
Isn't this what Jurassic Park is based on?
Well, no.
Imagining
Well,
the new evolution of dinosaurs.
yeah.
No, it's the Island of Dr. Moreau. You
yeah.
You should
That's a
see
classic.
that movie. That's where the rock band Devo got their name.
Really?
Yeah, because you remember in the
Devolution.
movie, they talk about, first of all, Devo means de-evolution. And in the movie, these animals were injected by Dr. Moreau with this serum, and all of a sudden they would evolve to human-like aspects.
Just magically become...
And they could talk,
Right.
and they could communicate. But all these different animals were half human, half what their ancestors were.
Oh, so the injection was permanent. It wasn't just temporary. It
Yeah,
couldn't
it
just
was
talk
permanent.
for an
Yeah, no, it was
hour
like-
and then revert back to their normal self.
And then all of a sudden you have this revolt of these animals, these beings, these evolved, de-evolved
These
beings.
mutants.
What was their
And-
main reason for revolting?
Their master or something,
Yeah,
something
you're
like
right.
Frankenstein.
Some kind of
But
master
what
slave
happened?
thing.
The leading guy, the leading animal
Yeah.
says, "Are we not men?" And I don't know if you remember that in Devo, "Are we not men?"
One of the lyrics.
song lyrics. And it turns out Devo came from Ohio State, and they were film majors.
Film
So
major.
they definitely got this whole idea of Devo from that movie.
Dr. Dale Russell, paleontologist, said to do a vision experiment where you can imagine, he could imagine a small Troodon bird becoming an intelligent reptilian, a dinosauroid.
A 2023 study found that dinosaurs lacked the necessary brain structure to evolve primate-level intelligence. See, we're superior.
But
Our study proves that we're superior.
Yes. And
Might
in
be a
terms
little
of
biased.
Dr. Moreau, what was interesting? We did a piece about 2 months ago where they were injecting human brain stem cells, human
mouse
stem
brains.
cells into mouse brains, right?
Yeah.
And you know what
Island of
happened?
Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
The mice could talk, and they said, "Are we not mice?"
Are we not Right.
That would be a good AI video, though. I like it. Inject them with human stem cells, and they become smarter. Well, that did happen. That mice did become smarter when they were injected with human stem cells. And they found that the human stem cells were replacing the rat cells until they crowded out the entire cranium. And that they can only get so smart because there are only so many cells can fit into a mouse cranium. So the animal determines how much intelligence you have, even if they had the best brain cells, the human brain cells, as we like to think. Yeah, you'd have very different ways in which the stem cells would probably adapt to different environments. Like if you put human stem cells in ants, for example, they'd be very different than reptiles in terms of their behavior. They would adapt to the body, to their environment, right? And that's kind of what nature's done. So
you sound so authoritative.
Do I? I'm sorry. I'm just reflecting on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a fun mind experiment just to bring up.
All right. Well, speculate at your own pace.
The paleontologist Paul Sereno at the University of Chicago says that we evolved in a mammalian world impossible to have taken place with large non-avian dinosaurs running around.
Yeah, they probably would have eaten us.
We are not inevitable.
Or stepped on
We are
us.
edible.
Yeah. We are not inedible.
And we are hopefully inedible.
We like to think we are now that we're apex, but if the dinosaurs hadn't declined, boy, we'd be in trouble.
There are many ways to serve man. If dinosaurs had survived, primates might never have risen to dominance, and the conditions that allowed human evolution might never have developed. So, if it wasn't for an asteroid, we wouldn't be here. Asteroids are not necessarily bad.
Just for the people alive at the time.
Well,
a few 500,000 years later, it's all a blessing, right?
Yeah. And who knows? We might be lizards here instead of us. Would they have developed an AI?
Welcome to LizardNet. Hiss clearly into your microphone.
Well, I'll tell you, in the context of today's show, which we know the next hour, we're going to be going to a whole new unexplored frontier and discussing the reality of it. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about cultures that have been here on Earth continuously and that apparently have been intentionally hiding themselves from our human civilization just for convenience and safety. Right?
Cloaking devices don't just work for the body.
Yeah. And to some degree, I wonder if some of those alien civilizations, such as we're going to be discussing the Pleiadian question, but apparently there's 108 civilizations from around the rest of the galaxy, according to Billy Meier's writings.
That's it. I mean, I thought out of 400 quadrillion star systems, you might have a few more than that.
Well, we're just talking about
108.
known,
And it sounds like the Galactic Federation in Star Trek.
Known on this planet.
How many were in Star Trek anyway?
I don't know. I'm just quoting the book. I never had a number before I read that book.
Isn't Stephen Greer and those people, they claim that there's like 60 different civilizations out there.
60.
Close to us in our galactic region.
Yeah, well, I think anybody who's coming from their own evidence is going to tell us what they know.
Oh, okay. Star Trek, 2,267 planets in spreading. Huh. Captain Picard said 2373.
Okay.
It's okay. So 2373 is the top number for the Federation.
Yes. Well, the Pleiadian
Pleiadians were how many? 108?
Her name is Sanyasi.
Yeah.
And she apparently told Billy Meier that there are about 108 known civilizations here on Earth at that time in 1975 or so when she was talking to him. Now, maybe some of them left, got bored.
It's interesting. Maybe, my association.
Maybe they just decided not to tell Stephen Greer.
Well,
just comparing different stories.
It reminds me there's 108 beads, meaning 108 beads.
Well, in Hindu
many religions
and Buddhism, it's kind of like rosary beads, and you recite these mantras. You have to do them 108 times. Mm-hmm. And I think even in Catholic religion where they have rosary beads, I'm not sure, but I think it might be 108 also. Yeah, when they repeat
50. No, I don't think so. It's 10 each, 5 sets, and then another.
What it is, it's 8 12s. So the 8 sets of 12 makes 108.
Right.
I believe that it represents humanity's mortal desires and the path to overcoming them. 108.
Really? Did you just read that somewhere?
Yeah,
or did you
right
think
there.
of
The
it?
AI just pulled it up for me. That's the Google AI.
Well, that's a random attribution to a number.
Well, no, 108 is
I think
significant.
that might be a
Mortal
hallucination.
desires. Traditional Buddhism, 108 represents the number of mortal desires that must be overcome
Okay,
to achieve
well,
nirvana.
you know, some
Nirvana.
Buddhist made that
108.
up.
Yes, well, many went by it. It's not a trivial.
Let's see. What did you say?
Must
it's
be
like
some
12.
reason for it.
It's
108.
12 times 11,
108,
right?
and
Or no, it's
108
12
planets
times
in
9.
the Pleidian system.
Is it 12 times 9? It's also 27 times 4.
I'm going to ask her about the technology, too. I'm kind of curious what she's found as a journalist. Force fields, anti-gravity, free energy, whether or not humans should get this and when. Can that kind of information be sent, or is that top secret? Is it an open source universe or isn't it? You know, I think there are a lot of things about knowledge, especially the stuff that might allow us to expand to other star systems, is probably kept secret from us because we're not ready for that yet.
Well, secrets can only be kept by people who can't figure it out themselves.
Well, that's a good way to keep secrets.
Yeah, right.
Here, figure it out. Figure it out.
I was
It's
like
yours.
John Graham. John Graham always said, hey, we're hiding in plain sight. If you can find it, it's yours.
Yeah. Well, science is kind of like that. It's there, just figure it out.
That's right. Nobody owns natural law.
Yeah.
You just have to discover it.
These things happen around you.
It works for everyone everywhere.
Yeah. We had a chance to check out this new series on Netflix called Apple Cider Vinegar.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
the rage.
It's a whole thing about how fake news is really affecting things. They try to investigate this scam of this beautiful woman who faked brain cancer to sell juice cleanses and stuff and rack up millions on Instagram. And they think they did a pretty good job on playing her. But I found it a little depressing overall.
Yeah.
Wasn't
What did you find
super
depressing
uplifting,
about
but-
it?
It's a true story, but it shows you how people really mess with each other not in a very noble way. It's kind of...
Well, in terms of the apple cider vinegar story, I think they did a pretty decent job of framing the rivalry between the allopathic solutions to cancer and the nutritional remedies solutions to cancer. And both of those stories were told from the point of view of a woman who believed that nutritional healing was possible.
Yeah, I got that. There's a lot of truth in it. There's a lot of people who want to believe this, that by eating the right inputs, right, or having the right food, you'll live better. Bobby's a testimony to that. In this case, she was also an actress using actress abilities to mess with people's minds. Right? In reality, she wasn't just acting on the stage.
Yeah,
I think
she
her
was
name was Belle.
extremely image conscious. She very much knew
a narcissistic
techniques
journey.
to persuade people. She would learn, if I tell people I have cancer, then I get attention. They feel sorry for me.
She pretended to have multiple types of cancer, not just one. And she cried hysterically at just the right moment to get sympathy. And she even faked a seizure for 40 minutes in the middle of a party she's hosting.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. So she's
If you're-
a master of grabbing your attention and then giving you a story to go with it.
So if you're into crazy true life con stories, get your kombucha and get your coffee enema going and binge some apple cider and watch that movie.
Yeah. But don't take the information seriously.
No, apple cider vinegar. No, it's a story. I've been actually enjoying the Elizabeth Holmes story a little bit more.
Yeah.
The whole story of the one.
Yeah, I'll
drop
tell you,
of
that
blood.
makes me much less, the documentary series on Elizabeth Holmes makes me much less sympathetic to her
From
than
what
I
you've
was
seen.
previously.
You didn't see the first episode.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But even if I did, the episode I saw has characterized her as just a doubling down liar. that she all along was in over her head and started by telling one lie after another, and then just the whoppers got bigger and bigger until she was really endangering people. So just with my shallow perception from the headlines, had not really seen her as, I kind of thought she might have been a bit of a victim, that she was just made to be a scapegoat on the part of people who were rivals. But it seems like she really was absolutely fabricating her story.
Well, it shows you how a little lie can turn into a big lie.
Yeah.
You know, it started off once you start going down that slippery slope. They
right.
demonstrate that pretty well. It's
No, I
called
know.
Dropout.
Dropout.
Dropout, the story of Elizabeth Holmes on Hulu.
Right.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
What was her medical company? Theranos.
Theranos.
Theranos. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Very famous. And she's in jail right now. She's a young woman in jail with a baby that's breastfeeding her. And
Just lost her appeal to
Sad
get
in
another
many ways.
trial.
But thanks. Norm says, see Munchausen syndrome for getting more attention with sickness.
Yeah.
Or using sickness to get attention.
Sure. Attention is a form of love.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's better ways.
Oh, of course. You know, there's a price for every way. By faking sickness, you're going to, at some point, it's not going to work.
Warp drive.
Yes, that's right. The warp drive. There's a really interesting piece this week on how the warp drive might be achievable sooner than expected.
Ooh, do tell.
Yeah, it challenges the theory of relativity by suggesting that we can go faster than light. And that's another thing the Pleiadians do all the time. It takes them 6 hours to get between here and Pleiades.
Right. Yeah, they say that's one of the big accomplishments that a spacefaring civilization achieves.
Warp drive.
Is they know how to go faster than the speed of light. And, you know, when you study the history of physics, we really backed into the idea that light is the fastest thing in the universe. That was a scientific theory that was being kicked around by Einstein, right? He's the first one who came up with a model translating an electromagnetic formula from Maxwell, who was just describing electricity and magnetics for the first time. So he turned that formula around.
Yes, Marion the librarian, you're so good. You're like my living
I do think
AI.
about these things.
I know. You can go far. Well, he'll put the AI in front of you and you'll go even further.
All right.
So the interesting thing is that this is the idea of a space bubble that can contract distance ahead of the spacecraft while expanding it behind it. It's the Alcubierre drive, originally suggested in 1994. And that there's a loophole in relativity that in theory would allow faster than light travel. It requires a lot of energy for that to work. That's been the boondoggle.
All right. Well, you
anyway,
can find these links today during the show live here on drfutureshow.com, where we always publish our archives and our live links. And you can also enjoy it in our podcast, which is published on the Santa Cruz Voice website. If you go down to the bottom and look for shows, you'll see the Future Now show. We're about to take a little break for some news at the top of the hour, local and national, and then we'll be back with our guest, Brit Elders.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
Enjoy the break, enjoy your future now, and we'll see you in a little while. See you back.
Bye. Okay, we are back. We're really excited for you to meet Brit Elders, who's an investigative author, documentary filmmaker. She's really been involved with the Billy Meier case and other extraterrestrial investigations. Her work is detailed in a book called UFO Contact from the Pleiades. And it includes evidence of how much these craft are real physically, photographs, video, physical samples even. Welcome to the show. Really great that you could join us, Brit.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so for the uninitiated in our audience, could you give us a brief story arc of the Pleiadian origins, how it began and how you got involved?
The Pleiadian case with Mr. Meier began back in the mid-'70s. So you kind of got to set your mind clock back to the analog days.
Okay.
We didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. No Photoshop, nothing like that. AI was not even a glint in somebody's eye at that point.
Yes.
And this man was in Switzerland and taking remarkable photographs, crystal clear photographs of very sleek disc-shaped craft. And in the process of that, also having contact. And what happened was he was sitting at his kitchen table and he got a sensation, like a cooling sensation across his forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And then he heard a voice that told him to go out and get on his moped and drive, which he followed. And he felt going with his intuition. He got on the moped and was directed through the forest into this beautiful little clearing that was pretty remote, no houses around. And then he heard a noise that he couldn't describe. And it was coming from above, so he looked up and he sees this disc. And then the disc settles down, eventually lands, and a woman gets out from behind the craft and approaches him. She says her name is Semyasa. She is from the Pleiades, and they are there for very specific reasons. And a conversation ensues for like an hour and a half.
Was he the kind of guy that could just accept that as being what's happening?
You know, he was. Billy Meier is not a school-educated man. He has a fifth grade education in those terms, but he's quite worldly. He had spent time in India. He had traveled through the Middle East. He's Swiss-German by birth. He was very open, primarily because of his time in India. Plus, when he was a child, he was 5 years old. He was walking with his father. It was in the middle of World War II. And he looked up and he saw this object in the sky and he asked his dad, "What is that?" And his father said, "Don't worry, that's just one of Hitler's airplanes."
Oh.
Really? Wow.
So it was a craft. That was the first time. And then he had some telepathic contact after that. So he was more or less prepared for it. And Semyasa, when she met with him, told him that they had studied him for 10 years before they began this opportunity of contact. They wanted to make certain that he was capable mentally and emotionally of dealing with the repercussions that would naturally come with them presenting evidence to show that they exist.
Yes. Yeah, I took away from your book the idea that I never had previously, that the Pleiadians and perhaps other such extraterrestrial civilizations are very selective about who they reveal themselves to, and that they do this because of a distrust of the potential consequences.
Right. Well, they don't want the individual that they're going to have contact with to be harmed in any way, but they also don't want to bring unwanted attention. They want attention to a degree, but they don't want a lot. They don't want a mass landing at this time. They told Meier, we still have a lot of growing to do as individuals and as
we humans.
As a collective group of humans on this planet, we have a lot to learn still.
Yeah, what struck me was how positive the Pleiadians are compared to a lot of the alien stories with all the abductions and stuff. It's like the opposite.
Yeah, that's really true. About the same time, well, we had Betty and Barney Hill, and that was
an abduction.
Missing time.
No, that was prior.
Yeah.
But at the same time as Meier, in the mid-'70s, you had Travis Walton.
Right.
Which was a big case.
Yeah.
And took place here in Arizona where I live. And that was rough on him.
That was the era of Bud Hopkins as well.
That's right.
And another character in your movie, Colonel Wendell Stevens.
Yes, Wendell Stevens. Wendell was one of the premier researchers. He had been in the Air Force, was a test pilot, was part of what was called the Tarmasham Project up in Alaska. And they would literally pick up gun footage from flights that had come in from Alaska.
Wow.
And take it and deliver it to the top brass, because this was information that had images of UFOs, and this is back in the 50s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So he was in on the
and
early.
that got him interested.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting character. I've run into him a couple of times myself on various adventures. So was he the one that approached you and your husband Lee at the time to investigate Billy
He did,
Meier?
because at that time we had a company called Intercept, which was an electronic countermeasure company. And it was designed to keep Fortune 500s, banks, large corporations free from eavesdropping and wiretapping. We had a great reputation, and we really guarded it and guarded our client list. And Wendell came to us after he heard about the Meier case, showed us the photographs, said, "You got to get involved." And we said, First of all, they're too good to be true because they were so perfect. Second of all, we weren't about to risk our reputation. Can you imagine telling your bankers, guess what? We're investigating UFOs now. No, back in the 70s, that would not have happened.
No.
Let me just ask a sidebar question here. How did the existence of telepathy affect your company?
Well, because most people weren't really working in that realm at that point. It was still a topic that they were testing at Stanford and doing things like that, but it was a taboo topic. Anything in this nature, whether it was UFOs or telepathy or kinesiology, was something that wasn't discussed back then.
Right.
We've come a long way.
We have a funny story, Alan and I, when we first got together 30 plus years ago, and he was first meeting my father. And
Who lives near Area 51, I might add.
Yes, my dad lived near Area 51. We actually took pictures of strange crafts and cattle mutilations and things. But the story is so cute because he's meeting my father, and he's, telling my father something about the fact that aliens are real. And my father is a, very evidence-based person. He's a lawyer.
A Las Vegas lawyer. I had never heard about that.
Jesuit. And
this was on the front page of the Sun.
And very informed, reads all the time. He says, no, if this thing were true, how would I not know about it? And Alan's response didn't miss a beat. He said, well, what if they don't want you to know?
Perfect. That's great. And how did he respond to that?
Oh, he just shook his head.
People are either interested or they're not.
They became friends.
We hung out in his world for a while.
Yeah.
He owned a hotel on the Strip, and it was kind of exciting. It was another chapter.
Yeah.
That's also a big UFO area. That's where Art Bell was up in the area there, and
Art was a love. Yeah, he
did you know him?
So much good for the community. Bringing knowledge out.
Yeah, I would say he opened the door for us to get into radio. We've been doing a radio show since 2009, and we had been avid Arch Bell fans. We listened to him.
We've met George a few times.
Yeah.
But I think Art Bell was really the progenitor of a lot of this focus. He was really exploring.
He really got everything started.
Yeah.
And he was so open-minded, and out there in the middle of nothing in Nevada. Yeah, and he had so much to offer because he listened.
Yeah.
And that was such a big key. So many, and I do a lot of podcasts and radio and things like that. And sometimes people just don't listen. But Art had that ability. He was wonderful that way.
Yeah.
Brings up the question in my mind is that you've been involved with this Pleidian case now for, I guess, 50 years almost. Right?
Yeah.
45, 50. And you've kept with it.
Long time.
There's something there that keeps you there, right? And I'm kind of curious, why does it continue to be of major interest to you, and what are you getting out of it yourself?
I get something out of it all the time, but mostly from the people I meet connected with it. Whether they're just coming into the case and learning about it for the first time, or whether they heard about it 45 years ago when we first did the UFO Contact from the Pleiades book. It's amazing how much information people are willing to give. It's the best door opener in the world because people start to think, they start to question, then you start a conversation, and then it just goes from there. It blossoms.
And people
but for
share
me
with you.
personally, it's helped me center a lot. And the reason that we chose to bring it out again now, 45 years after the first book, is because the world's ready for it now. When we first brought the books and the documentary films out, they weren't ready. It was a closet topic. You got in a corner and whispered something, and you were lucky if people wanted to hear what you had to say. But that's not the case anymore. People want to know. And I think it's time we just bring out as much as we can so the public has the opportunity to learn.
I asked Grok, that's the AI at X, about what would Brit Elders think would be the most compelling evidence from the case. And it analyzed all the data in your books and everything. And it says it was most likely would be the metal.
AI's right. Very, very right. The metal was so unique.
Yeah, can you tell us that story?
Yeah, we found Dr. Marcel Vogel. We had to find scientists all over the place once we got involved with the case because Meier gave us movie footage, photographs, inner negatives, audio recordings of the craft, and metal fragments. And these fragments were just microscopic. They were maybe the size of a pencil lead in some cases,
Yes.
some cases just maybe half the size of an eraser. That was it. Yeah. So what do you do with those? Well, we were fortunate we found Marcel Vogel
Yes, a
up
famous
at
character.
IBM.
Yeah.
And Marcel was a research scientist, senior research scientist with IBM. He had 32 patents to his name, and he had a scanning electron microscope.
He had his
that
own,
was
really?
a gift. Nobody had those back then.
No, that's pretty hot.
Yeah, so he got into the metal. And the thing that was interesting about it was the metal had metal and then a crystalline structure, and then metal and a crystalline structure. It had been created with a cold fusion process, which we did not have the capability of doing at that time.
Wow.
So back then, and still in most cases today, we have to heat and then pour metal. And then everything is all amalgamated together. You can't see a very distinct separation where you can in this metal. The other thing that was so fascinating about it, it had thulium in it. And thulium is a rare earth element. It's very, very, very costly to extract and hard to find. Where would a man who had one arm, he lost one arm in a bus accident, where would a man with an education that maybe equals 5th grade come up with the idea of finding and then retrieving, going to the expense of retrieving thulium and knowing how to incorporate it into a metal that is created through a cold fusion process? Boggled our minds.
How did Billy acquire those metal samples?
The Pleiadians came to him. When they did, they told him that they are going to present him with more evidence than anybody has ever seen on a UFO case.
Wow.
That's why he was allowed to take hundreds of photographs. And yes, the photographs look posed because they were. I mean, they literally hung their ship up there over roads with cars going underneath them. They allowed him to record the audio recordings. They allowed him to film it with 8mm, and they gave him these little fragments of metal to be analyzed. When we got there, he gave them all to us. He gave everything to us, and he says, the only thing I ask of you is you take it back, you let your scientists look at it, and then tell me what they say. He never asked for money. He never asked for anything other than we would commit to the investigation and bring him the information we discovered. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious. We know that Billy Myers, Edward Myers, was a contactee, and yet I have the feeling that that's not true for you. You're not a contactee. Do you distinguish?
Not a contactee. I've had many sightings, many unusual experiences, although not a sighting in Switzerland. But I have had sightings all around the world on different cases that we've worked on.
What do you think lends it to experience? Like, what kinds of differences are there, or what would make someone more likely to have that ability?
Well, I set myself up to not be a contactee because I'm an investigator. And so I have to have a neutrality about things when I look at them. I cannot already be affected by the fact that, I've already had an experience, so therefore, I'm that way kind of borderline with all of the sightings that I've had. So, but to be an investigator, you do have to have this little neutrality happening.
And so would you say that's from your free will and your higher purpose?
I think so. I think that's part of my purpose on this planet. Because I love that. I love that aspect of discovery and learning and digging as deep as I can. And that's something that's just part of me and I enjoy. Billy, on the other hand, when he was in India, he got into meditation. He got into all of these different, quote, transcendental type thought processes.
Yeah, wow.
And he opened up to everything
I see.
beautifully.
How about you? Did you try any of those yourself?
I do. I'm a avid meditator. I am totally into natural things. I am into nature. My heritage is my mom is Danish and my dad's Cherokee and Choctaw Indian, and I really gravitate towards the American Indian concepts and belief systems. So it's a very interesting mix I have going, that I can have this wonderful, as my son says, metaphysical background, and then that left brain clicks in and just takes me where I need to go.
Yeah.
So it's
like
good.
having more channels available.
Yes. Good way to look at it.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. In some ways, I think of you as almost like an anthropologist of the Pleiadians. You know? And as such, did you find out much about their culture? Like, I've heard they were 3,000 years more advanced than we are.
They are.
But that's pretty close in terms of the fact there are 400 quadrillion star systems in the local galaxy cluster alone. To being only 3,000 years from advance is pretty close.
Practically relatives.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering,
Exactly.
are there cosmic rules about how much they can contact with us, like in Star Trek with the Prime Directive?
Not so much. They don't want to have direct contact with a lot of people because they feel that we have to learn to understand ourselves better. They said that the biggest reason that they had contact with Meier and presented all of this evidence, they wanted us to realize we are not the only thinking beings in the universe. And that's because we were beginning to move forward out into the universe. And they didn't want us to be surprised when we got out there and found out there's other civilizations. Plus, we have to go through our own growth process here. They are big advocates of free will, that our choice is what will propel us forward or drag us backward. And they don't judge time linearly like we do. They may be 3,000 years advanced in many areas, but only 300 years advanced in other areas. And that's based on our linear concept because time is our toy.
What do you consider their emotional literacy to be?
Slightly different than ours. Their emotion is more tied to not a collective, but a cooperative group, where ours is so individualized. There is a little bit of a difference there. It's kind of out of sync. They are definitely empathic towards each other. And because they are telepathic, they don't have crime and things like that, like we have here.
Do they have genetics? Are they as disparate, different types of genetics as we have?
Very similar to us.
Yeah.
They say that they actually helped seed this planet. Many other extraterrestrial groups as well, but the Pleiadians were part of the seeding of this planet.
Some kind of high school science experiment for them.
Kind of, because it was something that they consider us their little brothers and little sisters. And we're just beginning to grow and develop and to learn.
Oh, that's definitely university level, at least then.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because one of the stories you said in the book is that they themselves reseeded their civilization after blowing up their original planet.
That's right.
Right? And that's one of the reasons why they want to help us to avoid that problem. It's a benevolent intention.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if I introduced you. There's Bobby Wilder on the line with us, who's our science correspondent in San Francisco.
Yeah, I saw Bobby. Hi.
Hi, Brit. Hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How long ago do you think the Pleiadians actually seeded our planet here with the likes of human genetics?
And when did this happen? Like the last ice age, 12,000 years ago?
Or
we have asked Billy, he has asked them, and they said we couldn't comprehend it in the way we view time because they view time, you'll love this one. They don't have point A and then you go down a line like we do with time, linear time.
Yeah.
They have event A happens, event B happens. That means event C will happen. But if A happens and B doesn't happen, C doesn't happen. So it's a whole different concept of kind of a spiral of time that doesn't have a front and a beginning and an end and all of that. It's almost, in fact, they say time simultaneously exists throughout the universe.
It sounds like the power of now, or there's only now, and now's where it's at.
Well, I know some physicists that are playing with these ideas that everything exists simultaneously.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Brian Keating and
Yeah.
yes,
Randall at
in
Harvard.
the great isness.
Yes.
Yeah. To me, I think the analogy is the flatliners analogy that from a two-dimensional world, a sphere looks like a circle. And so, we're in a more minimal number of dimensions than the world of the extraterrestrials.
hmm
So, I mean, just if we embrace this, it would change our normality, don't you think? If we all had this,
It would.
maybe that's how the world shifts, is that enough people connect in with this awareness, then our species will go up a notch.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Pleiadians say they exist at a different frequency than we do. That's one of the reasons they really don't like to be around humans.
Oh.
They say that we have, quote unquote, auric stench. So our auras are just,
Terrible compared
seeped
to-
with anger, frustration, greed, all those things that we pile on ourselves. And they don't like to be around it for more than a couple hours. They get nauseous.
Oh, I can understand
Yeah.
that. Listen, speaking of all of these or
Speaking of nauseous, we got to go to our commercial break here for 2 minutes.
not exactly the best send-off for our friends here in Santa Cruz, but
Here, buy some of this stuff.
yeah,
We'll be back.
these are great people and they love us, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Hey, Warren, it's been a while since I've been up to your showroom and garden center in Scotts Valley. Maybe the folks out there might want to know where you are.
Absolutely. To find Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box Company, just head up into beautiful Scotts Valley. We're at 46 El Pueblo Road, next door to Scarborough Lumber and the beautiful nursery. And when it comes to wood items, we have It's All About Wood gift shop. And of course, the Knox Garden Box. Lots to look at. We'd love to see you at Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box store. Okay, thanks, folks.
Hi, I'm Nancy, the tasting room manager at Bargetto Winery in SoCal, where we've been producing award-winning wine since 1933. Our tasting rooms are open daily at our SoCal location at 3535 North Main Street, or in Monterey at 700 Cannery Row. We host weddings, receptions, and special events. Go to bargetto.com to find out more, or call 831-475-2258. There's always something happening at Bargetto Winery.
Get ready to help build one of America's first local news and talk streaming radio stations. SantaCruzVoice.com. How do you do it? By donating either your time, money, or both. You'll be helping the Voice team construct a powerful infrastructure, one that we can all be proud of. To donate your time, your money, or both, go to SantaCruzVoice.com and click Support. SantaCruzVoice.com and click Support.
Treehouse dispenses not only the finest cannabis products, but information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Hello, I'm Jenna. If you would like to know how best to use cannabis, ask your friends and neighbors at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 SoCal Drive. If you're 21 plus with a valid ID, no appointment is necessary and the information is free. Order online at ourtreehouse.io and pick up at our drive-thru. See you soon.
And we are back. We are speaking with Brit Elders, author and researcher who's extensively written about the Billy Meier's UFO case involving Pleiadian contact. Being near Silicon Valley and being part of this NorCal push for artificial intelligence and all kinds of crazy stuff coming from our neck of the woods, I'm kind of curious, Brit, what you found most compelling about their technology, about the Pleiadian technology.
I think their ability to travel through space, the fact that they could actually utilize null time and null space to get from point A to point B,
null time,
which would be their place in the Pleiades, their star Taygeta, to Earth in 7 hours.
Wow.
Was just like remarkable.
Going to the Asia.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we felt so fortunate. We found Alan Holt with NASA and H. David Froning, who was with McDonnell Douglas. And both of these men were working on David, a space plane, and Alan, other forms of propulsion that literally could transport over 400 light years in a period of 7 hours, Earth hours, back to linear time.
400 light years.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, they push so far out, and then time ceases to exist and space ceases to exist. And then they're right back into an area where it takes 3.5 hours to come into Earth's arena.
Huh.
So, yeah, and it
Wow.
was interesting to find
Wow.
them because they already had this worked out on paper. It was great for us.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sort of sounds like the movie Contact a little bit, that there's some
Yeah,
kind of.
this was before
total-
that movie happened, yes.
Oh, wow. Fascinating.
Do they have any restrictions on sharing the star knowledge for travel?
The only thing they said was that it's a system that they call tachyons, and that we were working on it at that point in time. We were learning about it. We met John McFay in Scotland, who had written, he was part of the Royal Astronomers Group and all of this, and he had written extensively on tachyon travel and how it could be used to hit that a time in a space where you're moving so fast everything ceases to exist. So it's bing, bing, you're there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I heard someone asked Samyasa what the highest point on the Earth was, and it turned out not to be Mount Everest.
Mount Chimborazo. Because they don't measure from sea level, they measure from the core of the Earth.
Yeah, that only makes sense, eh? If you have
Yeah.
that technology, of course, from the center. as well.
Yeah.
The sea level is going to be variable.
Yeah, they have different concepts on things than we have.
Huh.
And so it's interesting to read it, to learn about it, and then go back and see how they would view things so differently than we would. It's like how they view a spiritually developing person. That person is responsible for creating their own luck, their own reality, their own happiness, and their own sorrow. And it all goes back to what they say is free will, and where we have to learn to find that center within ourselves. They say that that's a connection to what they call creation. Many of us would call it God, God force, whatever.
Did they
But
see the
creation-
universe? Did they see creation as all being alive, like the universe being a living thing?
Exactly. It exists in everything. And so by existing in everything, if we could learn to recognize that, we could have a deeper connection to it, which would help us center better.
Well, that's it. We have direct connection with living
Yeah.
universe, and perhaps they are helping us align with that in our own consciousness.
I think so. I do think so. I think there are many groups out there that have this same concept. And it's an old concept that can be found throughout history, that creation exists in all things.
Yeah.
I know at one point we were in Ecuador and we were working with the Jivaro Indians down there. And a child picked up a rock and started to throw it. And the shaman that we were working with said, "Don't do that. That's part of creation. You don't want to harm it." And it was so stunning to me that to them, that was as real as you or I.
Sure.
So they had transcended a lot of the human issues, like jealousy or war.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anger.
And they say telepathy helps with that.
Ah.
Because if we're telepathic, then we know what the other person is thinking. There's no point to that hidden jealousy, that
No
hidden
more
anger.
Right. No more secrets. Changes the game.
Yeah.
Wow. But is our species ready for no more secrets? I mean, isn't national security and nation states all based on secrets?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not too sure about that.
Isn't it good that certain people don't know certain things?
Yeah, it would be interesting if everybody had access to all information. I'm not sure how we'd process it.
Well, we're in a state right now where we can use the AIs to create text to video almost
Yes.
instantly. And it's just going to get better to the point where we won't be able to distinguish it from reality. And at what point?
That's
then,
one of my concerns.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because the AI issue, did the Pleiadians ever talk about having artificial intelligences themselves?
No,
Or
they
is that
didn't. I have asked Billy about it and asked him. He's still alive. He's doing well.
Oh, that's good.
But
Wow.
I've asked him to ask the Pleiadians about AI and
Yeah.
how we should be using it what they do with it, if they use it at all.
Yeah.
Because one of my concerns is someone will use AI to create like a false flag operation with the UFO landing at the White House.
Yeah,
What
easily.
do we do with that? As a group, as a collective consciousness, how do we deal with that? Especially if it's not real.
So I'm curious if you're familiar with Lou Alessandro. Some of the
I
things.
am.
And
in his work, yes.
You've probably been to Contact in the Desert and know all the
in
people
response
there.
to your question, in our circle for years, we covered Stephen Greer's first disclosure conference, and we've been speaking to many people who are leading voices in trying to address our human brothers and sisters and our relationship with the rest of the civilizations in our universe. So Lou Alessandro came to a local man named Danny Sheehan.
Danny Sheehan?
Yeah, to represent him
lawyer?
legally, because he had been overseeing lots of the intelligence around UFOs for the military, and he had been designated as the person who would be controlling the narrative as the story would get released. And he was being asked to say things that weren't true. And he was concerned about his own legal status if he were to follow orders or violate oaths of secrecy or do something that didn't sit with him. And, Danny's advice to him was to just tell the truth. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because we're at such a pregnant moment with our United States acknowledgement of the evidence that has been collected and the secrecy of our covert forces of government during the period of time since the original Roswell crash and now. It seems like the UFO disclosure process is very much integral to our coming of age as a society. And I'm curious, how involved are you with that scenario, given that Billy Meier and the Pleiadians are such a benevolent part of that story?
I am wholeheartedly for getting as much information of every type, whether it's physical documentation or a story, to the public, because it's just too invaluable. We cannot grow, we cannot learn unless we have access to knowledge. And knowledge comes from what we do on our own as far as trying to learn. So I am a big proponent of disclosure. I've known Stephen Greer for years. I've known Steve Bassett for years, worked with these guys for a long time. I think, personally, my opinion of our government, and I've got to give you a little backstory. My dad worked on the early missile programs with von Braun.
Right.
My dad literally was a rocket scientist. My mother was an intuitive, so I was real fortunate there. But it was interesting because I remember as a little kid, these engineers sitting around and they'd launch a missile and it'd go straight up, come straight down, or go sideways. And it was a disaster. And they'd be sitting on the living room floor with my dad with papers all over the floor, talking about what they had seen at the launch that wasn't ours.
Sure.
So this has been going on for a long time. There's a lot to bring out to the public. I don't feel like we need the government to say it's real to know it's real.
Because they're not going through the government, right? It sounds like it's a direct contact via.
I think, yeah. I think the more we learn from each other on this, I just don't want to find ourselves in a position of saying, if the government believes it, I will believe it. That's not right. You have to know it. You've got to learn about it yourself. To me, that is the invaluable lesson of all of it, whether it's the Meier case or Travis or any of the cases that are going on now. There's just so much information there that we can garner from and really take stock of where we are as humans as well as where we are as cultures.
How do you see the next step with this? Do you think the actual physical contact will occur? Do you think it'll be maybe an opening in telepathy for people? That perhaps there's a part of the brain that picks up non-local information like an intergalactic radio TV receiver, and that we're getting access to that? Or what? Physical contact? I mean, what would you like to experience yourself? Well, I guess that's
physical contact.
Yeah, actual close encounter of the third kind.
Oh, I've got a million questions.
All right.
I just want to sit and talk and exchange and learn.
Would you
Yeah.
be willing to live on another planet for a while?
For a while, yeah. I'd like to come back. I like Earth.
Yeah, you want to take it home.
Yeah. Yeah, Earth is a beautiful place.
Do you see maybe there's a convergence about truth across many religions, that maybe there's a commonality here that maybe our species will collectively wake up into?
I hope so. I think religion has a tendency to tear us apart. I see their concept of creation as bringing everything together. So hopefully there would be a commonality that would really create a flow between each, because everybody has something wonderful to offer.
Out of the many is the one species.
Yeah.
Right.
And just learn to hear each other and to, there's something that can be taken from literally everything that happens that is knowledge. And that's what we need right now.
Yeah. What do you feel can help people in the book, in your Billy Meier interviews specifically? Like what kinds of things would help people step onto the most beneficial path?
I think because we put so many quotes from the Pleiadians in there, I think when they read these quotes, something resonates in their heart. And that is a trigger for many people in a good way. It's like, oh, wow, how fascinating. Ptah says, he's another Pleiadian. He says, we cannot interfere with you yet. Well, that yet makes you think, well, when would you? What would happen? And so their quotes are just so geared towards letting you realize, number one, you're not alone, because they're not perfect either. And they are constantly evolving just like we are. And they tell you that. But they also give you little keys to look inside yourself to help you develop more as a human. I do love the quote about yet. We will not interfere yet, because they do believe in free will. But they have told Meier that if we got to the point where we were going to destroy our world as they did theirs, they would have to step in. Because it sets up a ripple effect throughout the universe, which we think of ourselves here on this little planet, just we're nice and tight and snug and we don't affect anything else. But everything we do,
It's connected.
thought, our action affects everything.
I feel like we're kind of a terrarium.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a popular one.
And every now and then the lizards get loose.
Every so often, yeah. Some simulation is run in the midst of reality. I know.
Yeah.
There is the big thought in Silicon Valley here of whether or not this whole thing is a simulation. Or,
yes.
And I wonder if you've thought about that.
Well, boy, have I had some interesting discussions in that arena. I mean, they're mind-bending.
Yeah.
Because when you get into that, then you're left with, okay, what's real? And what is reality? And then what is illusion? I mean, it's just this.
Yeah, what's
good question?
And then we have fake news, real news, and and people making up stuff, and so fantasy and reality become intimately intertwined.
Yeah.
Do we have the consciousness for that?
You have it in your heart.
That's the key. That's the grounding element, is the heart.
It is. It's so many people say, well, how do you know if someone's telling you the truth or lying to you when they're telling you a UFO story? Well, first of all, to me, it doesn't matter. I'm learning something from them anyway. But I know in my heart whether it's real or it's not. And if we stop thinking so much with our head, I think, and got more to thinking with our heart, we'd be in a much better framework to exist and live in on a daily basis.
Nice. Beautiful. I loved the parts of your book where you were looking for evidence in history. I wonder if you have any stories you want to tell about the Pleiadians in history.
They had time travel, so our history is their present.
Yeah, well, time doesn't exist, remember?
Right. I see.
It's
So
null
history,
and void.
what a joke. Yeah, okay.
No, they say that they have been on this planet throughout time. And they have, like I said, helped seed the planet.
Yeah.
But there are records of them throughout history in the pyramids, in every culture, in every civilization we looked at. American Indian tribes, the Nordic tribes up in Denmark and Sweden, they even had old myths and legends about beings that came from the Pleiades. South America is just, oh, it's a wonderful place to really go in and explore the Pleiades, because even at Teotihuacan, outside Mexico City, they have a plaza of the Pleiades.
Wow.
Yeah,
The Teotihuacan people actually had the seven sisters, the seven stars, laid out all across the floor as they traversed the heavens. It's quite something. Every culture recognizes them, one, as feminine,
yes,
and two, as being seven, which we only see six with the naked eye, but three, as playing a major benevolent role in their history, whether it's teaching them how to do better agriculture
or
so they can
the
grow
peace
crops.
pipe. The peace pipe. I heard that it was Pleidian that introduced the peace pipe.
Yes, that's true. In fact, when
Female,
we were
right?
doing some work up in the Dakotas,
Yes.
and if Lee, my husband, who's now deceased, but he was up there, and they did a sweat lodge with him. And they explained that part of the sweat lodge ceremony was recognizing the Pleiades coming in at that specific moment, which was November 17th. And the Pleiades were directly overhead.
Wow.
And when you get into Persian lore, no king of Persia could turn down a request on November 17th because it was a gift from the Pleiades.
Wow.
So all of these different components of history that tie together are really fascinating.
Yes.
I was never exposed to, you discussed something about Dendura in Egypt and how the zodiac has some kind of central relationship with the Pleiades.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand.
Different zodiacs of the ancient world had different symbols. Taurus is where the Pleiades is located.
Oh.
And that played a very key role throughout the Egyptian culture, as well as the Mesopotamian culture, Mycenaean cultures. Yeah.
I see.
Is it really Pleiades, or that's just a marker star nearby? That's a whole cluster of things. And I understand a
It's
lot
a
of the Pleiades are
cluster.
very young stars, and
Yes,
many
they are.
scientists would say there's not enough time for evolution to happen there.
They're right. Because what happened was the people that now live in the Pleiades originated in Lyra. And that's where they say they had culture wars, like we do, where we have factions that are fighting each other constantly. They ended up destroying their planet. The difference was they had the ability to get off their planet, go find a sun system with a planet that they could engineer. And they engineered their current home so that it could support life through the oxygen they needed, the water, things like that.
Yeah.
But they had to engineer it. We don't have that capability, and that's why they're concerned about us.
Yeah, right. I wish we did have that capability. Maybe someday soon.
Yeah.
Did they believe in evolution? Did they believe they came from some alien ape, or
No, they believe that creation created.
Creation created everything at once?
Created everything at once, yes.
Huh.
Yeah. They procreate like we do. They are not that physically different from us. Billy said their earlobes come right down into their jawline, but that was the only thing he really noticed that was quite different. That they could be walking on the street now and we would maybe recognize them and maybe not.
Right. Fascinating.
Well, that's the thing. You know, I've been to Burning Man many times, and I think that would be a place for aliens could easily land and not be detected. Explore our species in a rather interesting place. If I were an anthropologist, I would do that. You know, for this.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting timing, especially since we mentioned earlier that the rise of the AIs are going to be capable of interspecies communication. That's a huge area that they're delving into now. I'm wondering if the Pleiadians if they were talking to many species, that means that they had figured out not just how to get along with their own species, but they had a confederation of hundreds of them? Is that the size? Almost like the Star Trek universe?
Yeah, it's a confederation of planets, and there is a group that oversees our sector of space that they call a council. But there are different planets that work with each other. They barter with each other. They have trade set up with other places. They still explore space. They say that the universe doesn't end because it's constantly being recreated, constantly changing. So you have to have more of a fluid view of what the universe is.
Is there a universal understanding that all these species have about the nature of existence that they share that unites them?
Different ones have different thoughts and belief systems. They're not all alike, but they're aligned enough so that there isn't a lot of conflict between that confederation of civilizations.
And how do they deal with conflict? They there stood still?
They have an arbiter.
An arbiter.
It's negotiated out. Yeah, they said that the fighting is not something that is necessary. It's something that we have to grow out of, but fighting is not a necessity.
Interesting. Yeah, so we can evolve out of it. We have a caller?
Yes.
We do. We have a caller.
Yeah.
Let's
Master Now,
say
is that
hello
you?
to Master Now.
It's Master Now. It is
Master
indeed.
Now,
Okay,
yes, from Georgia.
Hi, Michael.
It's so good to beam in from the future. So,
You have a
yes,
question for our guest?
I absolutely do. There is a story that Lemuria existed, and part of what's left of Lemuria is in the Hawaiian Islands.
Right.
There is a fellow named Dr. Todd, and I don't OW2025. He's basically a stem cell person, and I found him as the best stem cell person if I was going to get something done for whatever. But he also happens to be, according to Cryon, and this gets pretty out there.
Michael, you have 1 minute.
1 minute before the end of the show.
Yeah, okay. Reincarnation of the priest who built the Pleidian temple that created an ascension temple. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I have. Not from Billy Meier, but from two other contactees. Yes, I have. Now, the Pleiadians definitely, so believe in incarnation patterns that individuals go through. And that's one of the reasons they chose Meier. They recognized him. But they do have an ascension temple that, because they believe in a spiral universe, a spiral creative universe that carries you up. And that was part of that.
Now, the Ascension Temple, where is that written about? Can I look into that?
I would look into Lisa Royale's work. She deals a lot with Arcturians, but she's also got a lot of Pleiadian work, and I cannot remember the other.
We got to go. We got 5 seconds.
Well, actually, I want you to let us know, Brit, how you would like people to contact you, and
we'll
also
put this in the podcast 'cause
talk about the book a little bit,
we just
because
went
it's
off
a
the
real
live feed.
treasure, and I want to make sure we can share that.
Okay. Michael, did you complete your thought on the temple and the information exchange there?
I think she said to check out Lisa Oswald.
Lisa Royale.
Can you hear that, Michael?
Okay,
Lisa
got it.
Royale.
Yeah, I heard that. Okay, so I'll look up that. Yes, I'm very interested in that. It rings a bell, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And Bobby, do you have any final questions for Brit?
Do you feel that we are evolving as a species into this fifth dimensional plane where consciousness and reality, where, if they describe this new age of Aquarius or this fifth dimension or whatever it might be, do you feel that it's happening now, and it's in a short period of time, a good portion of the Earth could evolve into another state of being, as opposed to the last 50 years? There was a slow progression.
Believe in the
now
singularity.
We feel like there's an acceleration all of a sudden. At least I feel that.
I do too. It's moving much faster. That's why I think bringing the book out now and the documentary out now is so important, because things are moving quicker and people are getting it on a level that it's a spiritual level. It's not a left brain level anymore. It's something really hitting internally. And you can feel the frequency shift.
Yeah.
With so many people, but I think there's many people that aren't getting it. But there's a whole group that are just, wow, they're out there and they're ready for it right now.
Right. Some kind of critical mass perhaps is happening.
Exactly. But it seems to be, again, that division. We are on a polarized planet. I get that. But there seems to be that division. Some are really moving forward with this frequency shift, and others are dragging their feet. And it's kind of an interesting thing to watch.
Maybe some kind of mutational shift is happening with that.
Could be.
Does it choose that path versus the other?
So
is
it DNA activation? I've heard it explained.
DNA activation? Yeah. Well,
interesting. Could be, yeah.
There was that story about that. 12 strands of DNA as opposed to 2. Remember those? Those stories?
Could it be, too, that the incarnation patterns we've had in the past are directing us more towards one side, which is frequency rising, and one side, which appears to some of us to still be stuck? Is it lessons learned? Is it based on the concept of creating your own reality, of creating that inner space that takes you forward? God, there's so many things, because I don't think it's just physical.
Yeah.
I feel like it's happening on a multitude of levels.
Yeah. Full mind, body, spirit connection.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it takes to have a species identity where we see ourselves as part of one thing.
Could be.
I've heard it described that there is, at the galactic center, there's a new set of frequencies that are coming there, and it's affecting our sun. And from our sun, we're seeing a lot of solar activity. Even today, we have these solar storms that are happening at a very high rate. And that energy is lifting us up.
That makes sense. That would make a lot of sense.
It's coming from the sun. Well, if the sun intelligence, what about, does the sun have any intelligence that we could connect with?
I have no idea.
Yeah, because in science fiction, in Frank Herbert's Dune, the suns were called Calibans, and they were sentient beings. But it was sent different from our form of sentience. They were a sun.
Interesting.
And
I hadn't thought about that.
And they were also the transporters through the universe. You would go into the sun and come out somewhere else.
That goes to something that I learned when I was in Japan. And they were talking about how the group of extraterrestrials that colonized the area of China and Japan, different civilizations, came from the other side of our sun and came through our sun.
Really?
Yeah. And there was something written in the Kohiki, I believe, about that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in fact, the car company Subaru.
I own one, yes.
Yes.
Seven Sisters, yes.
Yes. And historically, it's written in the Hiji and a couple other famous novels. But the car company came together because it was a grouping of different industries to produce in 1954 after World War II. They came together to produce this car. Anyway, the symbol of the car is actually 6 stars, 1 brighter star and 5 other stars. But it's much larger. If you take your telescope, you can see more than 7 stars.
Oh, yeah. But with the naked eye, you only see 6.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why Subaru has those 6 stars in there.
Yeah.
On the emblem.
Yeah, I love that. I've had a Subaru since 1982. I just love them. They're great.
Yeah.
Well, Brit, I want to be considerate of your time. We love speaking with you. The live part of the show is over. The Zoom continues.
I got it.
Yeah. So
I love this discourse, though, this back and forth, and the ideas bouncing, because that's where we need to go now, is to start getting it out there.
I'm kind of curious what you think of how the Pleiadian story has spread, because I've noticed a number of people are channeling Pleiadians now, and there was Barbara Marciniak 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and what do you think of all that?
There again, I think everybody has something to contribute. I can't judge any of that. There's nothing to investigate. There's no physical documentation to it. There is correlative evidence. That's great. But I can't put myself in a place of judgment there. I just have to let whatever I come in contact with or read or experience or hear resonate with me like it needs to, because it's just helping me. But I could never say it to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't believe this or I don't believe that.
Gotcha. Yeah, you've also got the lessons of judgment too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's got to hit me here. If it gets my heart, I get it, and I'm behind it 100%.
Yeah. So the heart is the arbiter for.
To me, it is. Yeah, I don't like to think with my head. I get in trouble every time.
Oh. That's a funny thing to say.
Or feel with your head.
You're right. I do that.
Think with your heart, feel with your head.
So how do you discern what to trust? Like, is there a physical sensation that allows you to feel like it's more reliable, or is there?
It's like a knowing, and it's just almost instantaneous. It's a knowing. We've all been around people that, we feel that vibration and we want to start backing up and we want to exit the room as soon as possible. I get that when I'm working with someone one-on-one and they're telling me what was real, is I'll feel it really smack dab in my heart. This has got a problem, and okay. So that's their thing that they have to go through, but I don't need to participate in it. Mm-hmm. However, if I hear something like I've been involved in so many different investigations around the world, and people will say something and then they wait for an issue, that doesn't affect me one way or another. They want to see how I'm going to respond, because I'm responding as soon as they tell their story. It's in their energy, and I think you're feeling it with your heart more than hearing it with your head.
Yeah.
So this knowledge will spread through the heart and our connection with the living universe.
Yeah, that's my form of discernment. I know a lot of people need the thump on it to make it real or not real, that type of thing. I got to feel it. That's my discernment.
Yeah. We've spent a lot of time on our show over the years trying to talk about a lot of these aspects, but one thing is how you see that if you're not a firsthand person witness, you're getting a story. And so your ability to discern is connected to you believing the person, believing their story. But so much of what people are arguing about is really believing a secondhand version of the story.
True. Very true. Well, that's why I go to feeling and not believing.
Right.
Because to me, the feeling is more knowing. It really resonates. This is valid. This is something.
But as a filmmaker, at the same time, as a filmmaker, you know that you can manipulate emotions through image and sound.
You can manipulate everything in today's world.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on your discernment ability.
It is creating your own reality, but it doesn't have that cohesive feeling that you get from an individual or from a firsthand experience.
Yes, nothing like firsthand experiences. They're becoming rarer.
Now, it's something that I was wondering about from watching the documentary and now just getting to know you is, did you find that you and your husband played different roles? Bad cop, good cop, or, you had a specialty and he had a specialty, or you canceled each other on some points but amplified each other on others? I'd love to hear anything about that.
We worked amazingly well together. We had a 24/7 relationship for 44 years. And it was incredible. But he would say something and I'd say, no, I don't think so. And then we'd end up going back and forth. And it was great because we always found something from each other that we could latch on to. We didn't play good cop, bad cop so much, but they used to, especially with Intercept, they called me the computer, because I could watch something and tell you exactly what that person said, what they were wearing, how they moved. And so Lee would always ask the questions and I would observe. And then I would write it down. And it's like having a motion picture camera for him. Okay, that happened. Yeah. But we worked really, really well together and just loved all the time together.
And when did you stop being a skeptic, especially for Billy, but in general?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting because as an investigator, you got to come in as a skeptic. But with Billy, I would say it was probably the third trip in. And he and I sat down and really talked. He and Lee and I. We were up all night sitting around this big red table in his kitchen. And he was absolutely just from the heart telling everything he felt and everything he experienced. And that got to me, I think, more than anything else. But as far as thumb-on evidence, it was the metal, hands down. That was remarkable.
Great.
Yeah.
The AI said it's the metal, and they also said that you were likely not be in contact with Pleiadians directly yourself yet, based on available evidence.
Right.
That the case is still very controversial. And
Which is good.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it being controversial.
Yeah.
It's so funny because if somebody says, well, these are fake, these are just models.
Yeah, the models right on the fishing line. Story, right?
Man, I go, guys, we made the model. And we hung it on a fishing line, and we hung it on a pole.
That's right. You were demonstrating in your doctor.
We were
DVD.
testing.
Yeah.
See what it would look like. And I understand some of the shots look pretty good.
Yeah. But when you ran it through the computer and you did all the photogrammetric analysis, way.
Jim Delatoso's work on that, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tiny little model, and Meier's craft was 21 foot. It was a big difference.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Jim Delatoso, we've met him on a number of occasions as well.
Oh, he's a love.
Yeah, and very much so. And also Kevin Ryerson, we were in Egypt with him.
Yeah.
He and Pat Flanagan, who was another interesting character in our little cosmic movie these days.
Yeah.
He did die a few years ago, though. Yeah, he wrote Pyramid Power.
Yeah.
His book came out in the early 70s. Big influence on me as a college kid.
Well, all of that stuff needs to come back out now.
Yeah.
We need to get it back out there because that taught so many of us so many different avenues of growth. And the things that are out there now are more for those that are midway through the process, but there's a whole generation out there ready, willing, and wanting to learn more.
For the next connection there.
And it seems like we have more access than ever before for people to seek and find. Which
I keep pushing everybody I know in the UFO community. You need one location where everything can be accessed.
Like the internet?
It's someplace on the internet that everybody can just put their stories and their documentation and their investigations into so that people can get it.
The answer to that seems to be the AIs, because if you go to grok.com, which is now free, and use Grok free, there's a function called Deep Search at the bottom, and you ask a question. I asked it a question about you, for example. I said, what are the connections between Brett Elders and the Pleiadian UFO stories? Does she believe that she's in contact with the Pleiades? I asked it that. And then it listed 60 sources where it researched that over a period of about 3 or 4 minutes. And then it came up with the answer that it seems likely that she does not believe that she's been in contact directly and that you were a researcher. So it was very good. And I would suggest trying that for looking at connections.
I think that's a good idea. I think the next newsletter and things I write, I'll mention that. That's a good place to go because it'll tie you into wherever you need to go to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's really taking search and internet searching to a whole new level, which is much closer to the way we converse with each other. And it's sort of getting the machine to Google itself.
I like that. It doesn't take as much time either.
Yeah, I tell you, I am really in the habit now of when I want to know something, I ask one of the various AIs to give me in 10 sentences a summary of this. And it's a great way of focusing in on the areas that you most want to know about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
asked, is there any connection between the Pleiadian craft and the Nazi craft?
What did we come back with?
Let's dive into this intriguing question about the connection. First of all, let's recap the two. And it is a Pleiadian craft recap and then a Nazi UFO, the legend story. The Huibu from a murkier mix of history and myth about German engineers within the secret SS developed the disc aircraft inspired by ideas, reverse engineered alien tech, projects like the Vril and the Thule societies influencing Nazi science, or Victor Schonberger, who's a repulsine engine defined gravity. I think he was the guy that was into flow and water flows and that sort of thing. Post-war rumors fueled by books like Mornings of the Magicians and later works claim these crafts flew maybe and escaped Antarctica or the moon. Thin evidence, it says, thin evidence. Declassified documents show Nazi aviation experiments, jet-powered Me-163s of the Horten 229 flying wing, but nothing confirms operational disc craft. photos of the Hanubu machines circulated online trace back to modern hoaxes or CGI, not wartime records. Still, the idea persists, linked to Operation Paperclip. And then they try to look at an analysis of the timeline between Meier's and the Nazi tech. Pleidian beam ships leap light years. Nazi designs, if anything, were primitive prototypes in comparison. And it goes on to conspiracy angles, evidence checks, more deeply comparing the
Get lost in all of the information you get.
Down that rabbit hole, right? And
easy to go down that rabbit hole, yeah.
And it says about Brit Elders, it says she focuses on Meier's evidence, metal samples, photos, and doesn't mention Nazi craft in her work. Her book and interviews stick to
Except
Pleidian
the one
claims.
story we got today about 5-year-old Billy.
She does not delve into World War II conspiracies, suggesting that she personally sees no credible link.
Right.
Yeah, you'd agree with
I haven't found one yet.
There you go. So all that and...
it knows me better than I do. Okay, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So,
I'm such a cheerleader for AI because I really am sensitive to the way that people create a false fear and then it artificially limits the potential. And
absolutely.
It's so important for me, for people to take away the understanding that artificial intelligence is actually our own invention, and it is responding to our intention to have access to all of the knowledge of humanity with the help of our technology. And if we can just keep imbuing it with the intention of serving goodness and eliminating suffering and solving problems, that is what most of the information can do. And
you need to be in a space where you are putting this out there on national television because everybody else is going, oh my God, it's going to take our jobs, it's going to take over our life, it's going to take over my mind. And you're looking at it from a completely different perspective, which gives a more whole value to AI than the limited value the others are applying to it.
Yeah, well, I realize that, but that's why we do our show. I think our show, it has an interesting swath of people who pick up on it, and it's very synchronicity driven, but we are in the conversation with a lot of the thought leaders, and we're kind of happy with our more local and unfettered ability to just think our thoughts and add them to the conversation.
We're hyper-local. The AI, though, is the unity because it will allow you to connect the dots. You can ask the connections between things, and it'll show them to you.
Just getting over the fear of using it.
Yeah.
I talk to so many people that are afraid that if they use it, it somehow is going to log everything they do and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they just go into panic mode.
Well, if you could just tell them that right now that might seem like a problem, but 1,000 years from now, the first digital elders are us. There are no records before us.
And I think it's just a matter of getting over your fear with it and asking questions. Do something fun for you, like, what's your understanding of Freudian psychoanalysis through a Jungian perspective? And you'll get an answer immediately.
Oh my God, that's going to be hilarious because you're going to have, and if it's digging into all of the information that's out there, it's going to be pulling from so many different directions.
That's right. Especially if you click deep search, and you'll see. The latest thing is that they'll also show you their reasoning trail. Like if that's shown, I like to say to that, and you can see where it maybe went south. It's an understanding, but usually it doesn't.
No.
That's the latest, and they're giving you that information. And I think that's great because it helps us think better, understand logic, and understand how to deduce things. And my feeling is that the kids are just going to use this as if it was normal, right?
Yeah.
Just like the kids always do.
Yeah, in fact, one of the perspectives I have about AI and the internet and the crossover generation we are as digital people now.
The last non-digital generation.
Yeah, is that it is a multi-generational shift of normality. And so we're in the birth canal, and part of the labor pain is the uncomfortableness of going someplace that we've never been before and we have to discover. And that is the challenge, is to solve those problems and assert our identity in this way.
That's a great way to do that.
Oh, another thing to look forward to, humanoid robots. They're gearing up en masse here in the Valley. And
yeah, I have a friend, Junichi Yaoi, who was very involved in robotics in Japan and really doing serious work on them.
Wow.
And now attaching the AI to the robot. Man, oh man, this is, I mean, it's beyond George Jetson. It's way beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting that most sci-fi writers of the last generation never thought that the cell phones would be this powerful.
Very true.
So,
yeah.
We're moving right along. The humanoid robots are just around the corner, and that could, interestingly, psychologically, might free our species up from the
it might
from the whole thing of slavery, and how that might have held back our karma as a species.
Well, it might free us up so we can start sort of doing more interior work too, instead of everything being on the exterior.
Yeah.
There is a quote from Osho where his following in the early days of computers were asking him if they should be afraid of computers, just like the same way that people are approaching AI right now. What about the fact that technology is going to take over our jobs and our human activities and will be obsolete? And he said what I thought of as just the guide of wisdom, which is we humans will naturally turn over to our creation, the computers, all of those things that they do better than we do, because that will free us up to do what only we can do.
Very good. Very, very good quote.
Another link coming out here in the Palo Alto this week is a release of looks like it's going to be a big book called Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance.
Yeah, that was our last interview with Jim Fadiman and his co-writer, Jordan Gruber.
Yeah. And the microdosing thing combined with the tech, I think, is going to help raise the vibration.
And it's very much in the therapeutic context of how these different pharmaceuticals or microceuticals can be used. And it's all analysis of first-person testimonials. So
very good. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Does it move along the lines of homeopathy?
I asked the authors about that, and homeopathy is a much more rarefied thing. You can have a drop of one molecule in a swimming pool of water, and that would be considered homeopathic. But a microdose of, like, say, LSD, which would be about 10 micrograms, would be billions of molecules still.
I think there's a difference in scale. Yeah. I think homeopathy is a little more in the Emoto, water memory, spirit to matter kind of realm, whereas microdosing is literally in the Shulgin genre of when you're experimenting or inventing a new chemistry, you want to find the thresholds. And where is the threshold where you don't notice it at all? And then where is the threshold where you notice it a little bit? And then where is the threshold where it becomes toxic? That's really the range of the microdosing analysis.
What's the name of this book?
It's called
just Microdosing?
Microdosingbook.com. You can see it right there. Microdosing.
That's the website.
Yeah, that's microdosing for health,
healing, and enhanced performance.
Yeah.
I predict it'll do well. They're doing a book tour now. They're going to be in Santa Cruz next Sunday.
Oh, very good.
I'd be there, except that's when the Oscars are happening. Exactly.
Yeah, we're kind of committed to going to Oscar parties. It's one of our favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it has been an absolute joy. I have thoroughly enjoyed this afternoon. It's been wonderful. I love the discourse. It's beautiful.
Yes, thank you so much for your attention.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Brit, really and much success with your re-release of the book.
Thank you.
We ordered our copy, and I can't wait to thumb through it.
Well, when you get the link for after this is all live and everything, send me the link. I'll get that up there and get this out there for you too, so more people know about what you're doing. I think it's important.
Thank you. That'd be great.
And thank you very much for your questions. I appreciated them.
Absolutely.
All right. And we're going to go tell people to go to your website, britelders.com, where you will get all kinds of great interviews, and you'll get links to not just this book, but some of the other wonderful books that Brit has been
You like to make moving fun.
And of course,
Right.
the re-release of the documentary and all the original footage, which Billy Meier collected and shared. It's just mind-blowing.
Wow.
Okay.
It is. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Brit.
We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Wonderful. Look forward to it.
Okay.
Feel free to send us
Bye-bye.
info. You know,
Bye-bye.
we'll do the same for you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you go. Hey, that was good, huh?
Awesome.
That
Yeah,
was
that
great.
was really fun.